my life, I realized that being a Muslim has its consequences. And I know that sounds really bad, but I mean, it's the truth. Like, that's what Islamophobia is, right? Like, because of your religion, you're being attacked. And so, according to, I want to give you all the references as well. So, American Journal of Public Health, in 2016, Muslims in the United States are 4 times likely to be bullied. 25% by their teacher, 50% are verbally abused, and 21% are abused like cyberbullying. And 17% of girls are either harassed or bullied because of their hijab. Okay. So, alhamdulillah, I was very fortunate. I did not get a chance to have like any of these problems, but there are Muslims, like in high school and in college, that go through this, that are, that get into drugs and alcohol and premarital sex. And the thing is that it starts with talking to someone about it. And unfortunately, like young Muslims don't have that safe space. We don't have anyone who we can talk to without feeling judged. And that's where it all starts, like we as a society. So it doesn't have to be parents. It can be your relative or someone out there, even social media. Like if we release positive information that, hey, like it's okay, like if you choose a path, like it's all right. There's safe space. You can talk about it. And so young Muslim girls especially are more susceptible to gay culture and stress, meaning they are more likely to go into anxiety and depression because they're afraid to talk about certain issues. Like for me, it would have been body image or just like being a Muslim woman in America. Like, why don't I wear the hijab? Or if I do wear the hijab, like, why are you wearing the hijab? Why can't you wear this type of clothing or that? And so I'm sure some of you can relate. Like, these are the kind of things that do lead to like mental health, either illnesses or disorders. So what are the effects for if mental illnesses are left untreated? So just like adults, children have the same thing. If they're left untreated, most of them are likely to go into depression, anxiety, commit suicide, drop out of high school, and like sometimes they're unable to like keep relationships or form relationships.
Sharing those stats. So Soching, we actually conducted a survey of our own back in November of last year, so just a few months ago. And one of the questions we asked our respondents were, what changes or change do you wish to see regarding mental health in our communities? So out of 181 responses, the overarching theme was more education, more awareness, and obviously destigmatizing mental health. So here's a quote. Someone said, I wish to see people talking about it openly and without hesitation. I also wish more education was provided for students to learn at young ages about mental health and issues, and that they are provided with locations and numbers and ways to get help. And then later, earlier this year, we conducted another study, and that was for parents, for anyone who had children from the ages of 4 to 17 years old, and we asked them, what change or changes do you wish to see regarding your child's mental health in your communities? Kind of the same themes, more support, resources, more awareness, for not only children, but also to parents as well. So yes, it will be amazing if we could get every school, every educational institution to implement mental health awareness, mindfulness activities, but we also want to make sure it's aligned with what's going on at home with parents and guardians as well. And if they don't know, we also want to make sure we want to provide them with the adequate resources. So as you can see, there is a good amount of support, awareness, and advocacy for mental health, especially in children. However, there's still a lot of work to do because we do get responses like this. So this is in regards to the last question, asking parents what we can do for children in their education system, and someone replied back saying he should focus on his studies. So I know coming from a South Asian background, we can all three speak on our behalves. Our parents have said this to us many times, but there are some people who are genuinely suffering from, for example, a learning disability, which actually one of our guests on our podcast shared that all his life he had a learning disability, and he kept telling his parents, hey, something's wrong, I can't focus on studying, I'm studying 10 times as hard as, my peers, I still can't get it correctly all his life. And he went up until residency with this. And then eventually his father-in-law said, who's a psychiatrist, said, why don't you go get tested and see what's going on? And he's like, okay, learned he had learning disability and that he needed medication. So just take a moment to reflect on that. He went all of his life, like pretty much, childhood, adolescence, he's an adult now, he's married, he's in like residency, almost, he suffered all of that when it could have been easily solved as a younger child. So think about all the emotional, physical distress that it caused him. And this is exactly why these statements is proof that we need to make sure we continue to destigmatize mental health on all sorts of levels.
So as you can see, we obviously really need to start talking about mental health education in schools. So when we were talking about what the emphasis should be, I think it starts with at least talking about the awareness of there being mental illnesses. I don't think that we even start learning about that until high school when we have Psychology 101 or whatever, or even in college. So I think that needs to start at an earlier age. And also helping to identify issues. Sometimes there's something going on, but you don't have a name for it. And if they can start learning about illnesses, then they can start identifying symptoms or signs that there's something going on. And we believe that the curriculum should have things that help them promote open communication. So activities that get kids talking, get kids comfortable, and how to cope with those issues. There's so many ways and so many mechanisms to use and be able to just get through an anxious moment or a panic attack. So if we can give these kids tools, it would make such a difference going forward. So what efforts currently exist? And I think this is actually really super cool. So in Delhi, they have a happiness curriculum. It goes from grades nursery to class 8 for them. This is actually really cool because they take 45, first of all, it was launched by the Delhi government, and their emphasis on, there's a lot of emphasis on like make sure you get a job that pays well. So they're trying to actually shy away from that, and they just want to focus on happiness. So they focus on holistic education. So they teach meditation, value education, and mental exercises. And there's just people all over the country helped to design this curriculum, which I thought was really, really cool. And they just assess how the kids are feeling using a happiness index. I didn't find that much information on how that works, but that is how they do it, and it's about 2 times a week. So I thought that was really, really neat. Recently, there was some information about England starting to teach mindfulness activities in schools. So about 370 schools are currently doing that. And they actually teach relaxation techniques, meditation, breathing exercises, and this is a program that they're going to run until 2021. So that's really, really neat too, and it's supposed to help children adjust to future stress. And then in the United States, so last year, New York is actually the only state that has passed a law that requires that mental health be a part of the health education curriculum. I think that is so awesome because it is the only state that actually requires it. Virginia has some legislation it passed, but it's not legally required. So for them, I think that's absolutely amazing, and that's something we should have in all 50 states. I think that teaching kids how to cope with mental health at that age is amazing. So hopefully we can get more than New York next time we talk.
Okay. So there's obviously a lot of research that needs to go into the impact of implementing mental health programs in schools, but we did some research. We did find a meta-analysis study. It composed of 24 different other studies derived from various psychiatric and social services abstracts and journals. And out of those 24 studies, there was a sample size of 3,977 participants with the children and adolescents, and they did find a positive impact of mindfulness interventions in schools, especially in kids ranging from 15 to 18 years old.
Okay, so how can we make a change? So I don't have any kids, but I do have a brother, and I have nieces and nephews, and I'm a mental health advocate, and so we all have a role in society for us to make a change for our next generation or in our children's lives. And we start by helping with their self-esteem. I think that is so important. Growing up in a South Asian community, I think I grew up in that sense that I didn't have the best self-esteem booster, and a lot of communities can relate with that. So that should be obviously, that's a very important thing. And obviously before that, I think if you notice anything that's, like Ariba said earlier, if you notice any changes in your child, seek help. Don't be afraid, don't feel ashamed, because when you seek help, you're actually being strong and you're helping your child. You're not doing a disservice. Another thing is listen and respect their feelings. I know a lot of people, parents especially, it's the other way around. You have to listen to me, you have to respect me. But unfortunately, that's not the case here. It's both ways. You need to listen to your child, or any child. Listen to them. They're honest. If you just open up to them, they'll open right back up to you. And creating a safe space. I feel doesn't matter wherever you are, your home should be a safe space for you. You should be able to come to your room and feel okay, no one can hurt me. No one can make me feel inferior without my consent. Also, for kids, I feel I'm schooling parents, but I wish my parents were a little bit more goofy with me. I wish that they were a little bit more fun, chilled out, but I understand as a first-generation American, it's hard because they're grinding, they're hustling, and they're making sure that, they're just working hard to pay the bills, pay the mortgage, and they don't have time. But I think for this generation and generation after us, we should take time for them. We should be able to just enjoy and just spend time with them, basically. Listen to them and do activities with them. And then also conversation. The reason why I shared some of my stories is because stories help resonate when we resonate with one another. And it also helps promote mental health. So if I share a story with you, then you're able to resonate with me, and maybe you can share your own story. And so one story I do want to share is that, for me, my parents, they weren't very talky and feely and all that stuff. So I had to help them be that way. So if I'm feeling upset or angry, I actually told them, hey, this is how I'm feeling. I need to talk to you about it. And if they say something that really just bothered me, instead of getting upset or angry, I would tell them, this is what you said that bothered me. So I think communicating, I've learned how to communicate, and I hope other people, children, and parents learn to communicate as well.
So we're running out of time. So what can we do to make a change locally? It's really important. You can reach out to your local government, talk to state representatives, reach out to your governors, do what you can to collaborate with others to help you get there. Educate the general public, have workshops, have lectures, participate in local events, and even speak to school administrators. Talking to principals or talking to people on the board would be a great way to start. You may face some resistance, but that would be a wonderful place to start. And then do your part to crush the stigma, guys. And I think if we can do it together, we can make it happen. So I think we need to start at a younger age so we can just not have a stigma. That would just be wonderful.
Okay, I don't know if we're gonna have time for this, but we did wanna, maybe you guys can just think about this, talk about barriers and challenges we're currently facing, and we can discuss it during the questions time.
Well, really quick on this one.
Yeah.
So what role does Islam play in mental health? Just by a quick raise your hands, has this been something that you've been told whenever you're going through something? So actually one of our friends gave us a really good quote, because it is a sensitive subject. We're not saying don't pray. Of course, prayer gives you strength, prayer gives you relief, but if you have a heart condition, prayer is not going to make the clogged arteries go away. So this quote actually is perfect. So when you pray, it's not that all your problems magically go away, but instead, through the power of prayer, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens up all kinds of avenues in the form of medicine, therapy, or anything else. I think that was just a great encompassing statement because, we can pray and we can get that relief, but if there is an issue going on, we need to get help, whether that's therapy or whether that's getting medication.
I want to So, I mean, model, I guess it would be great for parents to like model those behaviors, but don't necessarily shove it on them. I mean, religion is an amazing factor. It's a protective factor in mental health, but for a lot of people, it's protective from dangers of suicide and a lot of other things. It has a very strong protective factor, but telling children and adults who haven't really developed that kind of faith yet, that could really be dangerous.
Absolutely. And I think that's exactly what we need here too, is that if you continue to push that down, it's not going to be something they even go to when they can. And this is just our plan for the future. We hope to collaborate with, all kinds of people and continue to promote open dialogue through our podcast, which is Soching. And these are just some resources that we found. These are not all encompassing, obviously, but these are some great.
The first one is on data. For your first survey, what was the age range of the children surveyed? Where was it conducted? Was it in an Islamic school?
So for our first, I think you guys are referring to our first survey, which was conducted last year in November, and it was an online survey, and we sent it to like everyone we knew. So, and it was not inclusive just for Muslim people. The only requirement was you have to be 15 years or older to take it. But predominantly our population was about 70% Muslim and 70% North America, so Canada and US.
And one more question, and that kind of reminds me, Wafa, you said, I feel like I'm schooling the parents. As a child psychiatrist, about 80% of your job is schooling the parents. So you're doing nothing wrong. And that's exactly what the next question is. It says, how can we make Muslim parents be more emotionally open?
So I think, okay, so I think for starters, like for parents, like support groups are really helpful. So, starting off in the masjid, if we have mental health support groups that emphasize on parenting and like their children's mental health, that would be amazing. Also, like our social media platform as well, we post a lot of stuff for parents as well. And like I'm first generation, but I know like many of you, if you're first generation or if you have kids, this is like a completely like brand new like era for us. Like this is our chance to make a difference. And I feel like for my parents and like everyone, like first generation parents, it was a lot harder. And for them, I would say that as not children, but as like we're adults. So I would probably say that, talk to your parents, like make them open up to the concept of mental health, open like conversation. That's the key. And like I always tell my mom, hey, like listen to our podcast, listen to like some mental health videos, and I think that would be great. Yeah.
So actually, I feel very fortunate, alhamdulillah, but last year, so for 2 years I've been going to therapy, and last year I started taking medication, and for me, I feel very blessed because there's a very open dialogue at home. My parents are very, like, I don't have to hide that I'm doing all that, I don't have to pretend that my medication's for something else, and so I think earlier today someone asked, like, how did you even get to that point? Like, how is it that you can so openly talk about it? And I don't know when it happened, but I do think that Wafa has a point. Like, if you just try your best to be open, and I think it also comes from within. Like, you have to get to a place where you're comfortable, because sometimes people are gonna not accept that you're doing this, or they'll be embarrassed, or they'll be ashamed that their child or their nephew, niece, whatever, is going through something. And sometimes, unfortunately, that's the reality that just happens. And I think something that I've learned over the last couple of years, kind of focusing on my own mental health, is that you do have to get really strong within yourself, because when you do meet resistance outside, you'll just be better with it if you're strong within. But I think that continue a conversation with your parents or your family members, because eventually, hopefully, they'll get to a place where they really, truly understand.
And this kind of goes off of what these two are saying. I think one thing I realized growing up, because in my family we don't really talk about our emotions as well, it's just the culture of our family. And that's how I am too. But unless you're like really, really close to me, But one thing I learned when as I grew up and I tried to talk to my mom about things too, is that as I'm learning, they're also learning. So I think that mentality has helped me a lot to cope with stuff that